Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Nicole Frolick, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about this upcoming lunar eclipse, which I'm not going to be sugarcoating it for you. It's going to be a really tough one. There's a lot of opposition that this moon is facing in Capricorn. And if you've been paying attention to world events, things that are starting to get revealed to the public. As we know, this year 2020 is all about the truth really coming out. It's about having perfect vision, clear sight on everything that's being hidden from us. So this full moon is no shrinking violet to that whole theme. And I got a lot of messages that came through that I'm being guided to share with you, a perspective on this full moon that I haven't really seen being talked about on other channels so much. And so I'm going to share that with you guys because I feel it's important. And so we have this full moon in Cancer. Moon is very happy in Cancer. It's its home. And so it feels very strong. However, it's being opposed by the sun, Mercury, which is pretty much conjunct with the sun, so that's powering those two up. And it's also being opposed by Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, which are about to come conjunct in 2 days after this eclipse. So there's a lot of opposition coming from Capricorn towards this full moon. And of course, Saturn is very much at home in Capricorn, so it's feeling its full strength. So there is kind of like this standoff happening in this particular eclipse. And eclipses are all about closing out cycles and starting new ones. And when we think about, let's talk about the moon and let's talk about Cancer. Cancer is all about home, family, important relationships, love, and children. Cancer is very emotional, is very sensitive. It's really about getting in touch with the emotional aspect of things, as it's a baby water sign. But it's not, it doesn't mean it's weak. And in fact, when Cancer gets opposed the way it is, when a Cancerian has their back put up against a wall, the way this particular full moon is going to be faced off with, what tends to come out in Cancer is a very protective mother bear energy. Usually Cancer won't be confrontational unless it's about protecting something, especially protecting children. If you look in the news, there's so much starting to be revealed about pedophilia. We had the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein last summer, and then of course he died. And I mean, for the most part, people who are not hiding under any kind of rock pretty much understand this guy did not commit suicide. And so there's a lot of suppression that's coming in about this idea of pedophilia being rampant in our world. And people are starting to wake up to this. Now, the reason why this full moon is so important to this and giving a voice to the children, as well as your inner child, because I'm going to go into the personal individual level, but there's also, of course, anything that's happening to us on an individual level is going to get reflected out onto the world stage on a collective level as well. So I'm going to go into the micro and the macro aspects of this full moon. But Capricorn is all about authority. Capricorn is about leadership. And with Saturn being in its home sign, Capricorn, Saturn is the tough love teacher. It's about teaching us the lessons that we need to be aware of. Then you also have, and so, well, when you think about authority, when you think about your parents, you think about the government, you think about certain institutions, perhaps religion, where you have anything where you have a strong leadership role. These are the things that are challenging baby Cancer right now. And I say baby Cancer because it's the baby water sign, okay? Now, with Pluto conjuncting Saturn and in the sign of Capricorn, Pluto is all about everything that's hidden coming to the surface. It's about bringing the the stuff that gets packed away in our subconscious up to the surface to be revealed. And so there's a big teaching happening here for this full moon in Cancer, where the leadership that's challenging it is trying to still suppress information, suppress the truth. So we look at the dark side of the government, we look at the dark side of Hollywood, media, the dark side of religion, okay? All of this stuff is opposing the voice of the child, or the voice of the protective nature of Cancer. Think Mother Bear finally having a voice and speaking up for the children. And so I find it very interesting. Now, you also have Mercury in Capricorn opposing this full moon. And Mercury is all about how we tell our stories to the world. It's about the stories that we tell ourselves in this lifetime of what we believe. And it's our communication, planet. And so it's opposing Capricorn and saying, are you going to stand up and tell your truth? Are you going to share your story? Or are we going to keep the old narrative that has been pushed upon our society to keep your head in the sand, don't look, don't talk, and pretend everything's normal? This challenge is coming up against this full moon. And so what is that saying for us on a collective level? Well, if you've watched the Golden Globes, or you're aware of Ricky Gervais's monologue. Me personally, I don't like to give any attention to Hollywood at all. It's a pretty corrupt industry. And once you start to do any semblance of research through great independent journalists who are actually doing the real investigative work and exposing this, like for instance, Tiffany Fitzgerald, I would highly recommend you watch her recent video out on the mother who's coming forward exposing how her son was exposed to so much pedophilia in Hollywood to get him ahead in a boy band. And this is just one story of many that are going to start coming forward. And this is all about, you see, she is a great representation of this full moon being opposed by the darker authorities trying to suppress this information, okay? And we talk about suppressing information, Mercury. So look at this idea of when we think of an eclipse, everything goes dark first before the entire light is revealed. So it's these darker forces trying to fight the light that's coming forward from the voice of the children, or the ones of us who, these children who can't have a voice, giving that voice to them. And so you see Ricky Gervais's monologue finally starting to expose through comedy what's actually happening in Hollywood. A lot of people just take it as jokes, but there's the reason why comedy is so needed in our society is because it's a platform for us to tell the truth through jokes, to seed the consciousness before the reality can start to take form and really allow people to wake up to what's going on. Comedy is actually a beautiful gift that if we suppress its expression, we are not doing a great service to our society. So you have him coming forward, which I thought was very interesting and interesting timing. And of course, this interview that came out on Tiffany's channel of the mother coming forward about this, the pedophilia rampant in Hollywood. And we're starting to see in the last couple of years that there are huge sting operations that are exposing these pedophilia rings. Now, of course, the media is not covering any of it because the media is complicit in it. And so, and that goes for alternative media as well, not just the mainstream media. So be very discerning about where you're getting your information from. I would suggest finding investigative journalists who are independent, do not require on outside money or anything like that to shape how they're going to share their narrative, that their sole goal is to share the truth. And it comes from a deep need to express the truth and help others see what's being suppressed from them. So this eclipse cycle is starting to really work with that energy and exposing it. So the challenge here, though, is will you speak up? Will the voices be heard? Or will the suppression override the that protective mother bear energy that's coming through many of us, doesn't matter if you're male or female, it's that protective nature of us wanting to protect the innocence, okay? And we all have that in us. We all have that inner child. So let's take it into an individual level, where what's happening right now for you on an individual level through this lunar eclipse is you're going to be challenged about things from your childhood to really know your truth. Will you have the strength and the courage to face up against old authority or parental patterns that suppressed your voice, suppressed your true nature of the child to play, to be free, to express yourself in whatever way you needed to? And that's really coming home on this eclipse. So there's going to be a lot of shadow work being brought to the surface during this full moon eclipse. And either you're going to face it and you're going to liberate yourself, or you're going to want to hide in the shadows and pretend it doesn't exist. And that's just the reality of what is happening. And so we have a choice coming forward in this lunar eclipse that many of us will be able to finally take a stand. And the reason why I'm sharing this insight is because I am currently going through this very thing and having a lot of this new information come home to me, things that my body is feeling and remembering from my childhood where I was violated. And I'm having to face a huge shadow with that. And I'll share that with you guys in my next Raw and Real video. I'm just kind of allowing it to really come home and really sit with it and work through the emotions. But this was my choice. Was I going to just pretend it didn't happen and pretend like everything's okay? Or was I finally going to give my inner child, the voice that had to suppress it so long ago to keep the peace so that no one else would be hurt in my family or know what happened to me, and keep that suppressed and pretend it didn't exist when I had to carry it all alone for so many years? And I think it's time when we take that and we bring it forth to the collective, okay, on a world stage level. Are we going to continue to not give that child a voice anymore? Are we going to continue to allow the narrative of the dark authority to continue to perpetrate our subconscious and our conscious minds and allow that narrative to be the story that we tell? And so this is where we're coming up against for this lunar eclipse. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be an easy one. You're going to feel challenged, but that's okay. What's beautiful about this, okay, so then there's also there's a silver lining to this full moon, even though there's a lot of dark shadow work. And of course, anytime we do face dark shadow work, there's always a silver lining because there's a liberation that comes forth. But we have this full moon being trined by Neptune in Pisces. And Neptune is very spiritual. It's a very spiritual aspect of it. So what we're getting is we're getting some divine assistance here, assistance from the higher realms, assistance from God, assistance from your angels, whatever it is, okay, that you believe in. That is your way of connecting to that higher power. That higher power is assisting us in giving us the courage, giving us the faith to take a stand and to basically challenge this old authority, challenge this old narrative, challenge these old stories, okay, and take the hard lesson and turn it into something beautiful by bringing the light into the darkness, really taking a flashlight of high power and shining it into the darkest and ugliest places that have been hidden throughout our collective, our society. And it's time for that to be exposed. And if you're really new to this information of pedophilia and not really understanding that this is even rampant in our society, I would challenge you to challenge your narrative that you've always listened to and start investigating through independent journalists and start looking for the stories where people are starting to come forward, and ask yourself why. Why is the media not bringing this to the forefront? Why are they not bringing it into the light? And there's a lot of questions to be asked there. So All in all, even though it's a very tough lunar eclipse, it's setting off a cycle for the next 6 months that I believe we're going to start to see more of this information come to the forefront, more eyes being opened, clearer sight coming forward for people on how we're going to protect the innocence of our children, the innocence of our culture, the innocence of the collective, and bring it into a place of power. So I hope this information was helpful for you. If you guys need any more information about me, you can head on over to my website, inflexibleme.com. I have a newsletter there that you can sign up to receive information on any events or other things that I might be revealing first through that area. I also have a podcast, Enlighten Up, that you can listen to. It comes out every Thursday. And of course, my alchemy program is open. It's a monthly subscription program, which I'm actually going to go into greater detail onto all this information, as well as talk about this Saturn-Pluto conjunction that's happening on the night of our live call. So if you want to participate in that, you want to be part of that, you can sign up for that and join and get lots of information that I don't share on this channel. Guys, I love you so much. Be well and stay in the light for this full moon, and don't allow the darker authorities to suppress your voice any longer.